Welcome and thank you for joining today's quarterly demo. I'm Paul Phillips. I'm one of the product managers here at Novacura. And today we're going to be walking you through everything we've delivered in Q2 of 2026. I go through this quite a bit, each one of these, but as a reminder, please use the Q&A section in the meeting tools for all of your questions. It looks like a little icon there that says Q&A in the Zoom tool here. And before we get started, let me introduce you to the team joining me today. Andreas, Ola, and Aaron will be taking us through the latest and greatest in Flow Connect. Łukasz will walk us through some business applications and the latest on the marketplace. And then we have Varuna, our UX researcher, who will spend some time demonstrating the future of application development, what we refer to internally as nav apps. And the lineup looks a little something like this. We'll start with a brief intro. We're going to jump into the latest features of Flow Connect, where a bulk of the content will be today. After that, we'll cover business apps and then take a look at the product roadmap. At the end, we will answer all of the questions in the Q&A section. And as usual, I always like to take a moment to share why we do these quarterlies. First, and most important, it's about transparency. We really want you to have full visibility into what we're building. But more than that, we like to see this as a two-way conversation. Your feedback should directly shape our priorities in the company. We're here to show you what we've delivered, validate where we're heading, but more importantly, we want to hear from you. So please don't hold back. Your input is what makes these meetings so valuable for us. And for those who have missed our previous quarterly updates, I'd strongly recommend catching up on those recordings in the YouTube channel. You can scan one of these QR codes and they'll take you to either the playlist of our quarterlies or even how to upgrade to Flow Connect, or you can just go to YouTube and search for Novacura. Because today we will focus directly on what's new this quarter, and we won't have an opportunity to go back into previous quarter features. And with that said, I'll hand over to Andreas, who will take you through some of the exciting features we've rolled out on Flow Connect this quarter.
Okay, I will now demo list views for application library and package content. I'll also show the new tags for applications, pages, and automations, plus improved filter capabilities. With these features, it will be easier to manage packages with many apps and pages. So we'll open up the application library where we have the classic card view. We are now introducing the list view where you have sortable columns for created, last modified, and the name column. So let's open an application package. And we will start by adding a tag to an application. We do this by opening the settings screen. We have a new tags section where you can add tags. You can see that we have a little tag icon on the cards for those who have assigned tags. And if you hover over, it will reveal the tags. But tags is only useful if you have filtering capabilities, of course, and that we have added now. So you can filter by tags. But we also have a new deployment filter, so items deployed to test environments or production environments. And we can still filter by name, of course. So now we'll switch over to the new list view. In the list view for package content, we have a lot of information ready in the list. So we can see the deployed versions, last modified date, we have the latest committed, and if it's visible in the clients, and the assigned tags. We also have a dense mode for even more information on the same screen. Next, we have a great new feature, and that is test run machine and script steps. We are now introducing functionality for testing machine steps with the database connector directly in the designer. So let's open a machine step and first take a look at a couple of smaller improvements. First, we can now resize all windows. Like this. We can also maximize them. Second, we are also bringing back the functionality for adding SQL aliases for columns. So we can open the test functionality by clicking the test icon in the top right. So in this case, we have a simple query without any parameters. So we can click run test and we get the result of the query presented as a table. It can also be shown as a FlowScript expression. Most queries, of course, have parameters. So let's add a variable. And the variable shows up in the list and we can modify the value and run the query again. This didn't return any rows, but since this is a variable that is set in a previous step, we can open up that step and test run its query. We have the user defaults here. The variable value is set. And now, if we go back to the step, we can see that the value for the variable is automatically updated. So if we run the query again, we'll get the result. We can also expand the sections in a responsive way to make more room. And the same functionality is also available for script steps. So this is a step where we are using an IFS OData module to query data from IFS. So if we run the query, data is presented in a table view if possible, as well as in the expression view. So this step is using a connector with client credential, but we also support OAuth 2 with interactive login. So if we run the query again, we will see that this connector requires a login. We are redirected to the system, and after authenticating, the query will automatically run. Testing script steps is not only available for REST connectors, as in this example, but it also works for other connectors or even script steps without the connector. So we think this feature will speed up development even more. You don't even have to leave the designer. We are also introducing a highly requested feature, and that is loading messages for script steps, previously only available for machine steps. So if we add a loading message to this script step, and then if we run the application in the client, the loading message will be displayed for the user while the script is running, informing the user what's happening while waiting for the data to be returned. I will now hand over to Ola for some more new features. Thank you.
So I will take the opportunity to talk about three new topics today. This session or the next coming 10 minutes or so might be a little bit technical perhaps, so hold on to something and let's go. We're going to start with the M3 socket connector. If you have been using the M3 socket connector in Classic, we moved now away from the graphical user interface you might be used to in Classic, where you could expand on a program and then on the transactions to see what fields you can get in and out. We have moved to a few lines of FlowScript code instead, and it looks like this, where you have a little M3 API.query you can ask. And you enter your program and you enter your transaction and then your input field and output fields. And if you happen to know them, you can run it right away, and this will be the result of it. If you don't really happen to know it, there is a thing to get the programs first, which is called M3 API get programs. So in this case here, we get a program called CRS055MI, which we then can use in another function called get transaction. So I enter my CRS055MI here into that function, and it will give me a list of transactions I can use under that program. For one is being LST RT per period here, maybe list rates per period perhaps. So then we can go on to a third function called get fields, and we enter the program and the transaction, and we get a list of fields, both input and output fields. And that again yields us the same question or query we just had. So this is how the M3 REST API, or sorry, not REST, sorry, socket connector interface will work from now on. And we think coming from Classic here will be very similar, but there are it's one thing maybe I think that's going to be a little bit different, and that is we are now using interactive authentication, or we have support for it rather. You could still use one global user on the connector, but we also have support for this interactive authentication, meaning that each user in the warehouse on the field will log on with their username and password into M3. And we have a pretty good, really good actually import functionality. We think it's just to go to the hub, import workflow, you import your previous Classic workflow with the socket connector, and it should just import, still supporting iterators and error handlings and that kind of stuff we had in the Classic world. All right, so then a little note, I think, why we're going low code instead of no code. So why are we using FlowScript lines here instead of using the graphical UI? First and foremost, I think it's to be more AI optimized, so we can have chatbots understand what we're doing and help us with it, creating the script steps. It also gives you a little bit of an increased freedom, because in your steps you can add normal flow scripts, so you can do loops and iteration, error management, error handling, and also the signed values I'm about to show you in a bit. You can use that inside of the same step, so it gives you more freedom. And then you can also optimize logic and operation and put more things into one step, which could increase performance. And for us, it will be faster to implement new feature. It's just adding a feature more or less and then giving you a function for it, instead of having to figure out a good UI for it. More info about the socket connector can be found by scanning this QR code or going to the link I show you here on screen. Then moving ahead to something called signed values. First, I want to try to explain what signed values are and why we have them, why we introduce them. So imagine you have a little workflow here. The first step is commonly that you get more user info. You go to your ERP system, for example, to fetch more info. In this case, I am Ola, so I'm fetching my employee name, or ID, which is Ola in this case. Maybe I pass through a user step, Or actually, I don't have to pass through a user step because everything is run from the client. So even when I move between two machine steps, the data will actually go to the client. So here we could be sensitive for some sort of man in the middle attack or something. So now, if I go and get my salary, that's a button I have in my user step. I get my salary for myself. So far, all is good, right? But now I wake up on the wrong side and I feel a little bit evil. So I have figured out that there is a way for me now I can actually change the variable employee I had from my first step. So I go in, I tamper with the data, and I instead enter Paul. And now moving forward, I can get Paul's salary, which might annoy me because maybe he earns more than I do. Who knows? So to prevent this, what do? We introduce this thing called signed values. So as a reminder, this is nothing new for this quarter. We had it a quarter back already. For database connectors, we had a little padlock icon. You can click on the output variable. And when you click it, it will become closed or locked, and the value would then be signed. So to use that signed value in a subsequent machine step, you would get an error in the Flow Designer saying that the bind variable is a signed value. Use a $sign prefix. So simply insert a little $sign and you will be able to use your signed values. So technically now the second machine step is going to use the public key that was created to sign the value with a private key in the first machine step. So the new functionality now that we created is also FlowScript functions for this. So we have two new functions, which is called signedValue.sign and signedValue.readValue, enabling you to sign values in FlowScript already. So that could be used, for example, in REST calls. And a good feature then is to use a copy as FlowScript. So if you have an HTTP call step or a REST call step, you can copy it as FlowScript and just paste it, and you will have all the code exactly as in FlowScript. So this is a good happy middle, maybe, I think, between graphical UI and also have the possibility to move over to script-based. And I know there are some lines of codes here, but you don't have to be intimidated by it because it's actually just a copy and paste option here, right? And as we mentioned before, for AI to help us or to be able to expand a little bit on the scripts that we have here, I can now easily just add a row. So I don't want to just return the value here. I want to sign it as well. So it's just one line of code like this. And then the little padlock icon up here will also become locked to show that this is now a signed value. This has to be done on a connector if you think of it, right? Because if you run it on the client, I could already have tampered the data and then sign it, and it wouldn't be worth anything. So this only works when you're actually signing it on the connector. And now I have 0 errors. If I would instead go and not select the connector, it would be I would run this on the client and then I would get errors because it wouldn't make sense. So we want to block that, not even possible to do because it would just be unsafe and giving you the notion of being safe. All right, second thing is the read value we talked about. So now we are in the second machine step and I want to read my signed value. And again, we can just create the little line here using the signed values.read value to read my signed value. And then I can use that, for example, in a path parameter like this. So if you want to try this out, make sure you are on a later agent version. If you are on a version before 13.25, you won't be able to use signed values in script step. So make sure to go in there and update your agents. Summary, signed value sign and signed value read value are the two functions we introduced. We already had support for database connector. Now we introduce it in FlowScript as well while running on agents. And signed values are supported for single value, meaning like, words or scalar values, and single records. We don't have it for tables, entire tables. It's just for records and scalar values. For more info, please scan this QR code or go to the section in our help. All right, cool. third and last technical topic for me today, parameter expansion and binding. This was something we talked about already from in the last quarter demo, but we didn't have it ready yet. So I want to show you some examples on how to use it now. Basically, this is the problem when you do a select something from table where something in, and you had a list of parameters you wanted to insert there. There wasn't really good and intuitive native way of doing it. So that's what we solved with this technical thing called parameter expansion and parameter binding. So the first part of this is to get a list of values, right? So from a database or any other source, you get a list of things. So I have select company ID from demo.company here. I put that in my output variable called companies. And now I also am really eager to try Andreas's little flask out here. This is a game changer, I think, truly. So having my query here, without having to run it in the client or anything, as Andreas showed, I can go to the flask and click on it to enter this run test mode. So if I can run this query already now inside of the machine step. That's pretty cool in itself, I might say. But if you look at the data, it's actually company ID 10, company ID 20, company ID 40. It's not just 10, 20, and 40. So I need to do something in the middle here. I need to use FlowScript to map my my column, so to speak, or key value pairs into just a sequence of values instead. We have a function called map, which lets you do just that. So again, I'm going to output this to company list this time, using the Flask again to see what this would yield me. And now I can see that I move or transform the company ID 10, company ID 20, etc. into 10, 20, and 40. So now I instead have a list of values instead of what I had before. This now in turn is possible to be used in company list variable, which was the middle one I created there. So now it's actually going to unpack my parameter list and bind it to a proper thing that works in a select statement. This is supported across all database connectors we have, including the ODBC, which allows you to have pretty much any database that has a ODB support in your company. And for more info on this, and also some more FlowScript tips actually with map, collect, and choose, which are good functions we think in when doing this parameter binding stuff. All right, with that, I want to hand it over to Aron and see what he has new for us in the AI space.
Thank you, Ola. Some interesting stuff there. So I'm going to go through the AI Flow Builder. And for some of you, it's not new. Some of you have seen it before. So I will go through what's actually changed in it during the last quarter. Previously, you could lay out the basic structure of a workflow, but now it actually can generate the contents inside the steps, the real logic, and it supports a lot more step types than before. So I will go through the high-level picture first here. Let's see. At its core, the AI Flow Builder lets you describe what you want in everyday language, and then it generates the workflow for you. This means much faster prototyping and a lower barrier to entry for non-technical users. Importantly for our IFS customers, it's built specifically for IFS Cloud. The generated scripts read live ERP data directly through IFS Cloud projections. The goal is simple, to get you from an idea to a working draft in a fraction of the time. So let's see what's actually new in this release. So here's the update at a glance. The big headline is that AI Flow Builder now generates the actual content for more step types rather than just placing empty boxes on the canvas. To be clear, it doesn't do every step type yet. We've expanded the list significantly, but user steps, the screens people interact with, are coming a bit later. However, everything else you see here, plain language, descriptions, logic generation, IFS integration, and maintaining full control is available today. Let me show you where it all starts, turning a prompt into a workflow. So it all starts with plain language prompt describing the app we want to build. The AI gets to work, reads the requirements, and asks clarifying questions if needed, like which connectors to use, for example. Then it gives us the design proposal to make sure we are on the same page. We either approve or send it back for tweaks. So watch the canvas as I approve here. The AI maps out the entire workflow step by step. Now we have a complete, fully editable workflow and foundation to work from. But the structure is only half the story. What really matters is the logic that the AI puts inside of those steps. So let's have a look at that next. This is where it gets interesting. The flow builder doesn't just draw empty boxes anymore. It actually fills them in. For a script step, it writes the real flow script. For a decision step, it builds the routing conditions, sets up variables, and even drops in checkpoints. You're no longer staring at a blank canvas. You're starting with a working logic ready for you to review and adjust. A perfect example of this is the script step talking to IFS. So let's have a look at that next. Here I'm using the flow builder to generate flow script that searches for inventory parts in IFS. Because the agent understands my canvas selection and the workflow's available variables, it writes highly relevant working code. So if you look at the generated code here, it has correctly referenced my contract and search term variables. It even enables required modules automatically. So my only job now is to review and test it. So here I will be using the trace logs to verify the HTTP request and confirm that the right projection was called with the exact parameters that I need. So let's go forward. As you will hear in the roadmap session later, Flow Builder is getting smarter all the time when it comes to understanding ERP systems. It doesn't just blindly generate generic web requests. Instead, it reaches for the exact same flow script building blocks for IFS that your developers would reach for. Because of this, your integrations are built the right way, clean, readable, and perfectly consistent with your existing projects. It handles the plumbing so your team can focus on solving the real business problems. But despite all of this automation, you're always in the driver's seat. Let me show you how that works. So it's not just a black box that runs off and does things on its own. It analyzes your request, and if anything is unclear, it stops and asks you. Nothing touches your canvas until you explicitly say yes. Once approved, the workflow drops into the designer. If it's not quite right, just undo it. From there, it's completely yours to edit and refine for as long as you need. And the best part is, it works on the flows you already built. You aren't limited to new workflows. You can use the AI Flow Builder to refine and upgrade the flows that you already have. You just pick the supported step in the canvas and ask the builder to update that specific part, or even the entire workflow. It's a fantastic way to continuously improve what you already built, one step at a time. So that's the AI Flow Builder. The shift here is simple, but it's incredibly powerful. You describe what you need and you refine what it builds, rather than doing all the heavy lifting yourself. For our IFS customers, that includes automatically generating clean integration code for your ERP. So I would love to see and explore how this can speed things up for your team. Thank you.
Okay, so on top of what we've demoed here today, we have shipped many more features this quarter. Sadly, we don't have the time to go through all those features today, but please feel free to explore those at docs.novacura.com. I'll take you through a few more highlights of what we've done this quarter. And just remember that there's a lot of information that has been shared. Some of it technical, some of it more functional. Please use the Q&A section below just to ask the questions that you may have in regards to any of the topics we've hit on today. So we've made some changes to automations. The big change here is that we're bringing executions closer to the customer's environment. Instead of relying everything running centrally in our cloud systems, connector agents can actually now take on more of the work locally for automations. That means better performance, fewer network dependencies, and even more freedom on how customers choose and design their automations to run. We've also added new configuration options that display list values in line when there are 8 or fewer items. So short lists at a quick glance with no extra clicking or scrolling. The link portlet also now supports query parameters. This is an easy way to open external applications like IFS Cloud right in context. So in the example I'm showing here, you'll note that there is a customer order number, and that link can be a path parameter that automatically opens up IFS with that context. We've delivered a round table of enhancements for our table portlet. This is our most commonly used portlet of all of our portlets at this point, and we have many requests come in on changes to better this portlet. Now you have the ability to rename CRUD buttons, style, header, color, and font sizes. You can even toggle pagination with up to 500 rows when it's off. We can add column and value-based cell styling across all the portlets, including things like size, align, and wrapping of your custom buttons. So I think the screenshot over to the right shows a really nice view of what you can do here inside of the table portlet. The module generation app we have, it handles interaction with IFS Cloud and our code generation service inside of Flow Connect. They work independently of the service, but we have released a new version, which is version 2.3. If you are not on the latest and greatest, I would strongly suggest updating your agents, going to the marketplace, and getting this new application. From here, you can update your modules and ultimately update your applications to use these new functions. One thing to note, though, that as you go up in FlowScript functions, when you need an update to FlowScript, you do need to be able to update your agents. So I'd also like to mention here that the marketplace, at least the free marketplace plan, is available for every Connect customer. To grab it, all you need to do is head to the Marketplace Hub organization and download the app from the portal, as shown here to the right. If you scan the QR code, this will also walk you through how to log into the marketplace for the first time. And we've made a lot of changes to the agents this quarter. They're mostly focused around reliability. For example, now upgrades can move files individually with retries so that they survive things like antivirus and backup locks. The on-installs succeed cleanly on edge cases where they used to fail. So my suggestion here to all of our customers is, if you haven't already, I would take the latest and greatest update of our agents, and this can be done directly from the hub. And with that, I'll hand things over to Łukasz, who will take you through some of the newest features inside the marketplace.
So as you can see, I'm responsible for business applications and the marketplace. So I would like to start my presentation with an observation. When we look at our typical marketplace applications, they offer quite rich functionality, but in parallel, they are large and complicated. And it obviously has some implications, like, for instance, it's hard to analyze the business logic, and of course, it's even harder to modify them, right? And some of them repeat certain logic multiple times because they don't use components to store the same logic in a central place. And it's even harder to create very complex process-oriented applications out of these functional applications, because then the entire application that covers, all the complexity of real world processes would be even more complicated. So we looked at our applications and we decided to make a huge investment, and we decided to rebuild them. So what we are doing right now, we are dividing our complex applications into components. The components have been introduced together with Flow Connect, and we believe it's a great capability that will enable us to make these applications way easier to consume, way easier to analyze and modify. Look at the example below. On my previous screen, you were seeing a very complex application moving from the left to the right. And the example I prepared below is exactly the same application created with the components, where part of the complexity is hidden under the underlying components. And you have these components here in this application. And obviously, when you open the components and the Flow Designer, you would see some further business logic. So the complexity is still there. The logic is kept, but it's way better presented, and at each and every level, it's easy to understand and consume what particular part of the application is doing. We also want to avoid the duplication of the business logic, and for that reason, we encapsulate the common functionalities into commonly used components. And with that setup, the new applications, the new marketplace applications will be soon delivered to the market. So we are currently converting warehouse management application package. The very next step will be shop floor reporting and field services application. There are further benefits of that concept. I'm going to quickly refer to that here. First of all, when we build applications for the marketplace, we try to address the needs of very many different customers. And it's obviously hard to achieve that if you still want to stay simple. And with the components, we have the unique opportunity to offer a bunch of alternative components that might be used by our customers to replace parts of the application with alternative variant. As you can see in this pretty simple example on my screen, let it be that your application requires the creation of the customer order in IFS, and by default, the application offers this functionality, but you can replace a certain component with its alternatives that would in parallel create customer order in your CRM, and you have 3 different variants to choose from, supporting different types of CRM systems. With that approach, you can easily replace one component with its alternative, but the final application remains simple and clear to understand, because you don't have any unnecessary logic embedded in the application. You simply replace fragments that you don't need with the fragments you need. Last but not least, this approach, the componentized architecture, will enable us to build new version of all our applications that will be process oriented. We are going to connect multiple functional steps into fully process oriented applications, and this would enable further process improvement for your regular workers, because all the steps they perform on regular basis will now be dependent and connected to each other. So they will not have to come back to the main menu and select another option. The application will actually guide them through the process. But to achieve that while keeping the simplicity, we need to first divide our applications into the reusable components. And here is my last slide. I would like to mention that in the last quarter, we introduced a new type of applications. We call them extensions. Extensions are the applications dedicated to Flow developers, not for regular users, but for those who develop Flow applications. So they are like useful tools, right? And you don't download them from the marketplace. We just host it on the marketplace, and you run these extensions directly in the Marketplace Hub. Marketplace Hub is our self-care marketplace portal. If you don't know how to log into the Marketplace Hub, please use the QR code down below and try it. It's available to all Flow Connect customers. You don't need to have a marketplace commercial subscription. It's also included in the free marketplace plan. And I'm pointing it specifically here because I wanted to connect it to the components. As you can see on the left panel, we have free applications that are dedicated to support the componentized architecture. For instance, the bulk commit and deploy application is dedicated to support the following situation. You change something in your very bottom component, the commonly used component. Let it be a critical change that you implemented, like a bug fix. Now you quickly need to upload and deploy all the dependent applications, but you don't know which applications use this component. And even if you know it in the Flow Hub, you have to do it manually. With this application, with this extension, you can quickly determine your dependent applications, and with one click, deploy all of them to prod without any manual work needed. Same with Cascade Delete. If you delete your application, you normally only delete the application, and there are leftovers, the components that you haven't deleted, only used by this application. With Cascade Delete, you will be able to clean the entire space, not only the top overarching application, but also the dependent components. So there is a bunch of tools that we created to help you properly manage the componentized architecture of the marketplace applications of the future. With that said, back to Paul.
Okay, now let's look a little bit ahead. The following slides are going to show features we've prioritized from product management in the next 1 to 2 quarters. This is a chance to look at where we're heading and honestly help us shape it. So I encourage you to scan the QR code at the bottom of each of these screens if it's a feature you're interested in, and provide some feedback. Tell us what you like and what you don't like about each of these. And as a reminder, we use the Ideas Forum all the time to help prioritize our feature requests. We are continuing to go through this. So if you do have ideas that you're not seeing put into the roadmap, make sure you are putting them into ideas.novacura.com, or please vote on a pre-existing idea. So performance is something that we invest in continuously. It's a standing priority, not just a one-time fix in Novacura. Specifically in Connect, every quarter we are looking at ways to make it faster, more responsive, and this quarter we're trying to continue on that momentum. We've already delivered wins like OpenID Connect communication directly from the client, streamlining the path of communication to services like IFS Cloud. But this quarter we build on it. We're going to do things like optimizing the machine step execution for higher throughput. We're going to try to preload the portal client in the background for a 0-wait start. And we're trying to add smarter data load features with subset fetching for things like pagination in the portal. So as your data grows, the portal still responds quickly. We're doing our best to raise the bar on the performance of Flow Connect. And if you have ideas on how we could support this even further, please let us know. Flow Connect Edge will be coming out over the next few quarters. Here, this gives you the best of both worlds. It's going to allow you to build and manage everything in the cloud, but then run the executions on your own infrastructure. When you create an environment, you can simply choose that you want to run it on a local edge environment and point it to a local execution server. It's a pretty big unlock here for customers who have things like data residency, latency, or even on-premise requirements, but they still want to have that full cloud experience with the nice capabilities of building with AI and other tools. So if on-prem is something that you're interested in, this Edge service. If you scan the QR code below, it will take you to a questionnaire. Please do answer that questionnaire. It makes sure that the requirements that we're building around today meet your needs. We're also bringing push notifications directly to the client. This is so users get real-time alerts on their device the moment that something needs their attention. In the example shown here, we have a new work order landing on a phone lock screen from Novacura. We'll be extending the diagnostics in Portal, giving the builders sort of visibility into exactly how the page loads and performs. Today, we do this in our clients through the diagnostic panel, and we will be bringing that type of panel into the portal. It'll break down all the spans and allow you to trace things from data source execution, fetches, queries, and component rendering. The OPC UA connector is a global standard for industrial automation and IoT, and we will be bringing this into Flow Connect in the quarter. It's going to allow you to connect into things like PLCs, SCADA systems, and even shop floor devices. So you can turn those data signals of the devices into actionable workflows. And as Aaron mentioned, we are expanding the AI Flow Builder and what it can do. We'll be moving into user step configuration. That means the builder won't just lay out the workflows of the application. It's actually going to be able to build the user steps themselves and configure the components inside of those user steps. This will allow you to actually build ideas into applications much more seamlessly. And next quarter, we're aligning the AI Flow Builder much more closely with the applications it connects to. Specifically, we're trying to give it more power within the ERPs and build on the insights that our company knows. That's what we're calling this ERP fusion engine for IFS. It's an extension of the AI Flow Builder that allows you to truly understand your ERP. I'm going to take you through a little bit of a demonstration. So what you're about to see here is our ERP fusion engine. It's a major advancement in the AI workflow builder that we have today, but it doesn't just generate steps. It really does understand the logic of IFS and writes all the flow script for you. Importantly, it utilizes the flow script modules rather than making those direct OData calls, so it produces a more maintainable code base. In the video, we're going to simply ask it to explain what customer orders are in IFS. No script yet, really just understand the context of IFS. So we'll go out there and ask it to explain customer orders. Notice how accurately it comes back and describes the entity and its logic. For customer orders in IFS Cloud, it understands things like structure, key header fields, even things like the order lifecycle states that you can dive into. Pretty powerful tool for understanding IFS Cloud. Now, after we digest all this information, we may ask it to prepare a ready-made flow script for us. Here, we will ask it to return all released customer orders with some key fields. Those fields could be order number, order ID, and wanted delivery date. So here's the key part. The AI just doesn't hand us the script. It gives us a full explanation of what it built and why. So we can copy this script and we can go to a test run. So we test run it directly right here. No switching tools, no playground. It is all within this application, the AI Flow Builder, and it just works. But one of the biggest benefits is that I can go back and forth and make changes to this. So what if we wanted to change it? We don't really have to touch the code ourselves if we don't want to. The AI can do it all for us. we're going to go ask it to get the customer name and add it into the query. One important part here is I really love this concept. You're going to see that it actually goes out and the AI properly expands the query using like an effective OData function to glue separate data entities together in one. And that's not just a templated response. Like the engine is genuinely reasoning with the data model that IFS has. And we can test run that flow script again and see everything successfully pulls back, joins the data into one response. And you have all the details right here. So the ERP Fusion engine, this really is the next step to our AI flow builder. It's going to understand IFS, right? Production ready flow script of our modules, let you build and test and refine all directly in this one tool. And we're extremely excited about it. And here's another look at what we have working on, what we're working on currently. This is one big feature that's changing the way we handle application building entirely. No more, think a little bit mobile intuitive interfaces with KPI cards and interactive data where you can drill into the right details without ever leaving the screen. If you're planning to go from Classic and bring it into Connect, this new app could honestly change the way that you handle layouts. We refer to this as navigation apps. You may also hear us talk about flexible layouts within those navigation applications. But to better discuss this, I have Varuna here, who's going to take us through a little demo of what these apps could look like and how we go about building them.
Yeah. As Paul just mentioned, so we have KPI cards and more interactivity and more layout flexibility. So here is a client application where you could do a brewery registration. So we start with showing some KPI cards that give you some visitation numbers, and below are action lists with some text and subtext on what each items are. Let's say we want to register for a tour right now, and here I can see a 3-column layout. Again, more flexibility on what you could do. A little bit of a header, more descriptive text, action, call to action on each selection. And we also have tags that are new that could help you visually highlight specific information, in this case, the duration. I want to choose a standard brewery tour. It shows what you have selected. You could always go back and change your selection. And here we also like to show a possibility to group information that makes sense together visually in terms of sections, as you can see here. So we have more opportunities with layout, and we have a 2-column layer here. Let's start. We also have an option to add a new visitor. And here I can see we no longer have a stack of buttons as we used to before, so you could place them where they logically make sense. They also have different styling possibilities. You have fill, you have outline, you have an option to change the color, you have an option to add icons, so it's a lot more possibilities here as well. Let's go on by registering just one person for now. While I start filling in the data, you get to see the live reactivity in action. Here is the preview badge showing what we just filled in. And the moment I add more information, it gets updated instantly. Once you're happy with everything you filled in, I could confirm, register, and here you have the confirmation and also a little bit of a receipt of what you just entered. Let's go back to home and try to find Carol, who we just registered right now. So let's open a new workflow. And here we have a list item with some tags and some way to expand and collapse on the information of the person who visited before. I can search for Carol. Like I mentioned before, expand, collapse, and go back to home. Now that you've seen what we can do here, the flexibility and the freedom available, let's hop on to how easy it is to develop as an app developer. So here we are looking at the user step configuration screen from the web designer. So this is a new and updated one. It's a little bit similar from before. Here we had a section of controls, and now we have more options, some reusable blocks and templates, which I'll talk about later. In the center, you have the canvas to show what you're aligning and creating your screen, and here would be more configuration panel. Let's start by creating a blank page for now. And Paul mentioned flexible layout. We also talk about grids here. So here we have a 12 column grids. And the moment you change to a smaller device like a tablet, you see it switches to 8 and 4 for the smallest device. And the idea here is to help you to create sections and elements that snatch instantly to the grids to make it easier. So let's give that a try. We create a section and we say we decide to make it smaller to a 4 column. And I drop a text and a button. And I want the text to take a lesser width. So it helps you to not bothering about the CSS and the technical capabilities. We take care of that in the back, right? So it's just you decide how it looks like, full freedom, and yeah. So we also have more styling opportunities. You could choose different sizing of the text. You can make it bold and also change the color. Let's go with the blue text. Similarly with button, as we saw earlier in the prototype, that you have different styling. You could go for outline buttons and also colored in different fills. Let's move on and add another section, which takes the rest of the space. And here I want to talk about creating subsections. So by using opportunities of these grids with sections and subsections, you have more flexibility to align text within certain groups in a certain way. So it helps you create the layout that you desire. Let's add a tag and a button. Now in this section, by default, we go with everything in a horizontal option. Maybe you want to change that to a vertical direction. And then you decide that everything in here, you could align it in the center. So there's a lot more options within a section and for each element to justify, to change the direction. You can choose here, for example, we could say we want to do an end justification, or we want to do a right align. We could do a center align. So there's a lot more freedom to align exactly like the way you want. And now you created this section. You want to reuse it several times in different user steps or different applications. You have the opportunity to save it as a block. Let's call that test for now. And save the block. And the save blocks appear in here. So here are some blocks that we have already created for you. Here's an action bar, and here is a search and filter. So the idea with blocks and templates is we provide some from Novacura, and you could also, like you just saw, save one on your own, create, and this will be available for the whole organization that you could reuse in other places. The section content blocks are smaller sections, whereas templates are a whole page layout. So let's look into that by creating a new user step. Let's browse some templates, and here you could select pre-existing, and once you start creating your own, those would also appear in this list. Go with Reception Hub. You probably recognize this, right? This looks like the home page that we just created in the client. Let's keep browsing. I go with the card create, and this was a selecting a term. So I apply. And now let's say I want to see how this looks like. I want to check for responsiveness. How does this look like in smaller devices? So here I can look at it in tablet and mobile, and you notice that maybe it's not the best how it looks like. Also a very easy fix. So we have by default, like I said, horizontal. I could just change this to vertical, and then it fits the screen perfectly. The changes that you do in a smaller device is a local override. So this would just stay here. If I go to a bigger device, you still see what was there before. So this gives you the flexibility to optimize the use in different devices. We also added a new feature here called the navigation. This helps you to connect workflows in a whole different way. So let's go into that. So each navigation item here could be selected to a different workflow or a different branch in an existing workflow. So again, helps you to connect different workflows for a user more possibilities, and even how you want to style this navigation. You could go for a horizontal or a vertical. This is vertical, we could switch. So a lot more options, and it instantly becomes responsive based on the device that you're working on. Lastly, we also have a preview. So here we use live test data to render how the client screens could look like. This would show, here it's just a mock, but the idea is that it shows more realistic data and styling and everything that you selected. And that was it. From a blank canvas, you can go to a fully responsive multi-dimensional layout. I hope this gives you a lot more freedom to design the screens the way you want, open up a lot more opportunities. And before we start questions, I would like to start a live poll to see your reaction on what you just saw.
Yes, Bruna, I've gone ahead and started the poll. It's got 2 questions to it. We'll leave it open for about a minute or so for everyone to go through and give some feedback on what they just saw.
Yeah, thank you.
After that, we'll move to Q&A. So we'll give everyone about a minute here just to read over the questions and answer. Okay, so I'm going to leave the poll up for a little bit longer, and I want to just say that this brings us to the Q&A section, so you can continue to answer those. We have a couple of Q&A sitting in the chat, so I just want to say thank you for sticking with us. If you want to continue to submit questions in the Q&A panel, the rest of the team here will all come on camera, and we'll do our best to answer these questions for you. After that, we'll wrap up, and we'll post this recording on YouTube as we typically do. So we have about 7 questions in the Q&A section, which is exciting. The first one is, how will the client pay for tokens and credits in the AI Flow Builder? So I could probably take this one for us and then maybe talk through. The AI Flow Builder is available to all customers on Flow Connect today. If you go in to the AI Flow Builder, when you open it up in the web designer, you will see that there is an allotment of tokens that you have each month. Those tokens roll over for you. We've done some work to figure out what it would take to do builds of applications, and we've given an allotment of tokens. If you would like to get more than the tokens we provide, feel free to go and talk to your account manager, and they'll be able to help you set up additional token consumptions. Also, for the first month, every customer who comes on board to Flow Connect does get an extra allotment of tokens. Our hope would be that you use those to do your best to try out the Flow Builder, see what it's capable of, and give us some feedback.
Paul, I think we had a question right above that, actually, from Martin McDonald as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I could read it to the group, and then we can get Albin. So it says, with the increased reliance of client compute, when will we be getting the corresponding hardware requirements?
Yeah, I interpreted that to the agents and the automations running on the agents, right? That's my interpretation anyway. When we release it, we will publish those requirements with an example of X amount of automations executions, what the corresponding hardware requirements will be for such a amount of executions. Because it all depends on the frequency and the complexity of the automations you want to run on your premise. And I just want to emphasize, this is optional. You can still run it on cloud, or you can choose it to run on any agent group. So that's up to you.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I didn't call it out in this slide, right? But you did see that there was this cloud drop down, and then you had all of your agents listed below. So the option to still run it in the cloud as it does today is available. For hardware requirements of the agents, though, if that's of something you're interested in, that is in docs.novacura.com. So you're welcome to go and look that up at any point and see what we do suggest for the agents that get downloaded locally. Okay, we had another question here. Can any of this be done on IFS 7 if we have Flow Connect? I'm going to make an assumption here that this means the AI Flow Builder components that we showcased. just because it seems like that's what took center stage in this demo. And if that's the case, maybe you have a response, Aaron.
Actually, I don't think so, but I don't have a definite response. It would probably not work very well.
So maybe I could help. I think, Paul, the question was raised at the moment when you were presenting the ERP Fusion Engine, the roadmap item, and so our answer is this will not help you with IFS 7 because it's dedicated to support IFS cloud-based customers. So unfortunately, it's a bad message. On the other hand, the general AI flow builder capabilities can also support customers relying on IFS 7 in the overall, creation of the workflows. So some functionality you will benefit from it, but not specifically from the ERP Fusion engine that is dedicated to only support IFS Cloud.
Very nice. That said, Flow Connect does support IFS 7. We do have the Oracle connector, and it is available for our customers to use who do want to come over to Flow Connect and are on older versions of IFS. We had a question here. What is the status of the app which was supposed to convert Flow app with API call to OData call? Okay. So I think this one sort of goes with Łukasz. Yeah. This is regarding what we have for our AI that will take PL SQL code and convert it into RESTful OData web services.
Yeah. I'll take this one. So after a couple of iterations, we decided to only offer this application in a form of a service. So if you are the customer interested in converting your workflows from those supporting IFS 10 or apps family into IFS Cloud, please contact your account managers, share your workflows with us, no matter if these are on Flow Connect or Classic, and we'll prepare the conversion evaluation, and we'll send you sample results, and then you will be able to make a final decision if you're okay with the results, if they are promising for you, and with our proposal or not. So this is the way we support this conversion. We don't offer this tool publicly because it's semi-automated tool, yet still powerful. I can only mention that we already sold to migrations based on the results coming from the tool, and we were able to reduce the amount of work that is needed to convert from IFS apps to cloud by 50%. I'm not promising that this same amount of reduction will happen in your case because each and every solution is different, but this is the more or less estimated amount of saving you might expect. So as a service, not as an app. Yeah.
Very nice. Okay, we have a question most likely homed to Varuna, but it asks, are there any updates on the UI UX end of the applications built where flexible layouts are available? The current buttons inside are pretty static, and we'd like the flexibility to move the placement and controls. I don't know. I mean, I could maybe just pitch in here. I thought the demo did a really nice job of showing button placement inside of different containers, if you would, inside of the applications. So it really does allow quite a bit of a more flexible design. But button placement is something that's come up in our past, and even we showed in the demo here today, this quarter, where we've allowed wrapping of buttons inside of the portal, for example. So this is a commonly requested feature.
I just wanted to add, Paul, one thing.
Yep.
That we are going to add this flexible layouts capability to the existing sequential applications first. So you will be able to create a specific type of user step. We temporarily call it user step flex. And then you will benefit from all these capabilities, and you will be able to place the button wherever you want. But if you would want to change the placement of the buttons for the conventional user steps, it's not currently planned in the roadmap because we largely invest in the flexible user layouts. Yeah.
Any comments you want to add to that, Varuna?
I think you guys covered it good. Yeah. So
very nice. Okay, last one. Is the AI flow builder dependent on the version of the agent you are using? That's a good question. I think the answer is no, but tell me, Aaron, is it dependent? And if so, I'm assuming at some point we add new flow script functionality, right? And then the AI flow builder knows that, and maybe it does require some support.
Exactly. It might create flow script for a newer version of flow script than the agent runs, but then it will be a matter of upgrading.
Yeah, very good thing for us to have documented, right? And say which version we're running inside of it, because I would assume that over time, as an example, Mats, we do add different functionality into that flow script, right? Min max, for example, might become a function. And when we do something like that, it requires an update to the flow script, and that engine runs on the agents in essence. So we may present to you a flow script that you copy and paste that uses those min max functions, and therefore it would need you to have that version of flow script, which would mean an update in the agents. However, I think Andreas, you've talked a little bit about it in the past, showcasing that the versions are off a little bit more and giving a better insights to our customers in hopes of like presenting you that you're off on the agent and you need to go through an upgrade process.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I think that's it for questions. I just want to say once again, thank you so much for joining today. Outstanding questions. I think this is exactly why we do these meetings. If you have any further questions that we weren't able to answer today, feel free to reach out via email. We'll do our best to respond in a timely manner. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day.